and welcome to episode number 17 of the Elisa Licious Show. I'm your host, Elisa Jankowski, a business administration student, yoga teacher, marathon runner, and currently finishing my plant-based nutritionist degree. I'm here to help you to achieve a healthier, happier, and more sustainable life. I'm also the creator of the Elisa Licious Show Instagram account, where I post delicious and nutritious plant-based recipes. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. That's at Elisa Licious Show over on Instagram. I hope you had a wonderful week of good vibes, and I'm so grateful that you're tuning in with me today. So let's get started. Alright guys, just a quick announcement before we start with today's episode. I wanna wish you all the best, simply because I know life can be hard. I know, especially when you're in Germany right now, we will have our second lockdown from Monday on. And it's quite hard for me as well. I just started with doing more yoga, bouldering, going to the gym and all these things, but there's so much to do. You can still focus on the positive things in life, and I really, really hope that you use this time for yourself. I know it's hard. I know we always want to see our friends and everything, but we will get there and everything will be fun. I send you so much love and hope that this finds you well. Today, I have someone really special on the show, and when I say someone special, I had him on my podcast list right from the beginning. I always wanted to have him on the show because he's one of the most inspiring people for me. He holds the world record for running a marathon in every country in the world. There are more things that he did that are incredible. You will learn all about him in this episode. He is currently in Italy running for 100 days. Today is day 43. He's looking good. I know he's struggling a bit, but he is doing an amazing job, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. So here comes my conversation with Nick Butter. So I'm here today with Nick Butter. He's an incredible athlete, and he also runs in every country in the world. I still can't believe it, and it's super, super incredible. Congratulations on that, first of all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I know it's a bit surreal, really, because not so long ago I didn't even know how many countries there were, and now I definitely do.
I think it's hard to believe that you actually run in every country, because for us, we just travel around and sometimes we run in different countries, but every country is really special.
Yeah, marathon in every country feels like a really good tick in the box for me now.
Oh, definitely. So where are you at the moment?
I am in Bologna in Italy, and I am waiting to be healed magically somehow. I've got a little bit of an injury on my leg, so I'm waiting for a few days to get healed. But yeah, I'm in Italy, halfway through a mission to run a marathon every day for 100 days, all the way down from north to south of Italy.
That's so cool. Did you know that there was actually a girl who started running a marathon every day in the beginning of the pandemic, and she got the virus on day 95, and she had to stop running,
No.
and she wanted to do the 100 days as well.
That sucks.
Yeah.
There's so many things like that. You can't. I mean, the pandemic is horrendous as well, but you pick up other injuries, and like stuff happens when you do that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been good.
So now you have, today's day 39 or 40?
So today's day 40.
Yeah.
So 59, 60 days to go until we get to Sicily. It'll just be a little bit tougher as I've got to make up for my missed marathons. So I have 7 to make up for. So I'm going to be doing a week of double marathons towards the end of the trip, which is going to be a little bit tough.
Sounds exciting.
Well,
all right.
It's going to be exciting as long as I've got my legs back. That's going to be.
Yeah. I saw that you're sponsored by On Running. Is that right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's so cool. I'm actually a tech rep in Berlin. I'm currently here. This is from them as well.
On actually, I wear that when I run. So yeah.
Oh really? Oh, yeah. I love it. So nice. So cool. How did you get in touch with them?
I don't remember. It's been a while now. I think we reached out to them not so long ago, just because we have a few big missions coming up, and so I wanted to get a new trainer brand on board. And yeah, they're good guys, and I met them in Zurich on our way through to get here from the UK.
Oh, that's so cool. So what's your favorite shoe?
Cloud Ace has to be Cloud Ace.
Oh, that's interesting.
Stable, slightly bigger. Just kind of, I've not really worn shoes that kind of grip my ankle. I usually wear ones that we don't have any ankle support whatsoever because don't do that much off road. So, but yeah, these are good trainers.
Yeah, I'm more the flow guy.
Okay. Yeah, I've tried so many. They sent me all sorts of pairs to wear, but Cloud Ace is what I go for.
Yeah, I also got the Cloud Venture Peak just a couple of days ago, but I got shin splints just a couple of weeks ago, so I can't try them at the moment. So fingers crossed that I will go for my next trail one soon.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, what I thought was a tendon problem then went to shin splints, and then from shin splints to a fracture is not ideal. But
Oh, Jesus.
yeah,
Taking
I don't
everything.
have. I probably need months to heal, but I'm going to only give it 8 days. So yeah, never mind. Yeah.
You will get there. You will finish it, and you will feel great afterwards. I'm
Good luck
sure.
with your shin splints because that's not nice.
Okay, so but you're originally from the UK, is it right?
Yep.
Where about?
When I was very young in London, and now most of the time, I mean, my family and my brother and I grew up in Dorset, South Coast, by the beach.
Cool. And I'm not sure if that's still right, but you don't live in a house or something. You have a van, or?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, don't live in a house. I live in a van with my girlfriend and our puppy, Poppy. And yeah, so we've been in the van now about a year, nearly a year, coming up on a year. And we'll probably be in the van for a good maybe 4 or 5 more years, maybe never go back to a house. We don't really, I kind of like the minimalist vibe, and I think seeing a lot of the world as well, I've kind of been like, I don't really need lots of stuff or walls, but it would be nice to have some form of solid base one day. But it's nice to have the van because we can go anywhere. So have a home on our back.
Okay, but I have a question about that.
Yeah.
How do you go on the toilet and how do you shower?
We have a toilet and we have a shower.
Okay.
We don't use the shower much because it takes quite a lot of water. So we can use like this. So we have a solar bag shower, which is 25 liters. We'll leave it to warm up in the sun, and then we'll use gravity just to let it drip, and we can wash in that. But to be honest, everywhere you go, there's places where you can use the toilets. We don't have to use the one in the van, or we can use friends, campsites. There's like all sorts of places you can go for a shower. I mean, we're in a hotel now for this week when I was injured, so I just wanted to get a little bit more rest and a good opportunity to clean the van out and all that sort of stuff, and give the dog a little bit more space as well while I'm not running her. So, but yeah, no, it's good. There's lots of downsides to being in a van because you're in one space and you don't have the kind of, we're always worrying about it getting broken into, that sort of stuff. But other than that, there's so many positives for being in the van. And I don't really care about getting sweaty and running and staying in the same clothes for 2 or 3 weeks because it doesn't really bother me whatsoever. I just kind of get on with it. But yeah, we have everything we need.
So would you say that your life changed a lot after going from a house or an apartment to the van?
That's a good question. Well, it was very difficult to tell because I was away for 2 years and then I went back into a van. So I was living for 2 years out of a bag in hotel rooms and staying with people all over the world. And so I kind of didn't feel any different because I was just, I just had my bag of stuff with me, which is what I took in the van. There isn't any room for anything else. Some cutlery, and we've got the hob and the cooker and the fridge. And so I've got that kind of stuff. But yeah, when I lived in my place, I didn't spend a lot of time in it either because I was always running in different places. So it was kind of natural to me to do that. I love it, absolutely love it. I think we're talking about never going back to a house, but I think when family happens, then you kind of have to think a little bit more sensibly.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, you're currently in Italy and you're from the UK. So where do you have your steering wheel? On the left side or on the right side?
Yeah, so we have the steering wheel on the right hand side, so it's on the wrong side for Italy.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, I mean, Nikki's driving. I'm obviously not driving because I'm running everywhere. So
Yeah.
I don't have any problems with that. But now I've driven on the other side of the road loads of times all over the place. So it's honestly, as soon as you try it for a few times and you think it's going to be scary, and then you get used to it. You
Yeah,
know,
you
there's
get used to it. I had the same thing when I was living in Australia because I'm from Berlin and it's obviously on the other side. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
funny when you say it's on the wrong side because for me, your side is the wrong side. So it's
yeah,
always funny.
yeah, exactly. If you put me in the other side of in another car that had everything backwards, then like we're always constantly trying to open the door and sort of think here. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I would like to talk with you a bit about your job that you had before you started your whole running exploring thing. Um, so I heard that you were working for 7 years in the job that you didn't like, and I wanted to ask how this affected your mindset and why you started to change your life.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit longer than that, I think. I can't remember exactly how long, but yeah, I suppose maybe after the seventh year, I started to transition away from working in finance. It's not that I didn't like my job; it's that it just wasn't me. I think many people are quite happy with their jobs and content with their jobs and can make do. But I think if you ask a lot of people, even in jobs that they would maybe even say their dream job, if you say, well, if you could have any other job, what would it be? I think most people would have an alternative path. And for me, I didn't go into work hating it. It earned me money, and I had great friends, and I worked very hard. But it just wasn't me. I just had sport and everything in my blood, and I was always running, always skiing, playing tennis, just doing everything else I could outside. And the problem with being in an office is, by definition, you're inside. And I just like to be outside and kind of feel a bit of the fresh air as well. So while running was a therapy, I think for many people, going back into the office just felt like it was undoing all of that. And so going out and trying to find where my best self was definitely not cooped up in an office.
Yeah, I get that absolutely. I mean, it's so nice outside. Why should you stay inside all the time? So I don't really
Yeah.
see the point.
Yeah, and there's so many people that spend so much of their life, there's horrendous stats about it, that just spend all of their life indoors, even though we don't intend to. Even though people like love the outdoors, there's a lot of people out there, and I was one of them, that love the outdoors, love sports, and yet because of jobs and because of the way that we live in society, we spend so much of it inside. So I'm outside now, believe it or not, and this is on the roof of the hotel. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, what I did, I got a treadmill desk so I can walk in my apartment. So it's better than just sitting and doing
exactly.
nothing.
Yeah, no, that's
But
really good. You might have
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so when did you start running? How did this whole thing started?
I don't know when I started running really. I think running properly. I mean, I guess you run virtually as soon as you can walk, right? You walk and then you're like, well, hang on a minute, I'm going a bit too quickly, and then all by accident you've accidentally done a few steps of running. So bypassing that and going to the most significant moments, I think during my school time, my old headmaster famously said to me, and I quote in my school reports, he was my PE teacher as well, and he said, "You're not a natural runner. Nick is not a natural runner." I wasn't a natural runner. I don't even think I'm a natural runner now. I'm a better runner than I was. But yeah, I suppose I loved cross country. I'd always do quite well at it. But I was never, I would often win or come second or third in these big cross country events that we'd have. And long distance was always better for me. And then as life went on, I started to get into other sports, and then eventually I gravitated back towards running because it was easy. You just get out there, and it's such a great way of keeping fit. I think there's a cycle that a lot of people go through when they discover running. It's, oh, I need to get fit, let's go for a run. They go for a run, and then if they manage to keep at that and stick with their program, then it also becomes competitive to yourself. And then once you become competitive with yourself, you then go, okay, there's lots of races, running is a big thing now, maybe I'll go and do a 5K or a 10K. And then you start to run to compete. So you like go through this next phase, and then if you're really good, you then start to compete professionally. And then where I went, outside of the other side of the competitions, and I wanted to do something more along the lines of adventure. So what have I done now? Nearly 760 marathons, and I love it, but I'm not bothered about speed anymore. In those early days, it was all about looking at the watch, getting your PBs down, and now I just run because I love it, and I actually prefer to run much slower because I can take it in and I can chat to people. I learned that when I was on the Running the World trip, because I was meeting people and chatting to them, and then having photos with kids in Africa, and I was just like, I don't need to run any quicker. So I've definitely fallen in love with a slower pace of running.
Was there a specific event where you, like, what you can remember that you discovered this whole ultra running thing, or was it more like, okay, I can run further and further and even further than the marathon?
Yeah, I think I'd already done kind of over marathon distance, not in competitions, because I lived in the countryside and I was always training a lot, and there were definitely a good amount of days where I would get out and do a lunchtime run, get back in the evening, do even more miles, and then before I knew it, I was running over a marathon in a day. Then you get to marathon distance in one go, and then after that, no, I think there's a race along the Thames in the UK which I did fairly early on. I've done it a few times now, and I finished really highly in that race. I think I finished 4th or 5th, top of my head, and I'd never done a long race before. And I wasn't really trying. I just wanted to enjoy it, and I did quite well. So it was a good sign that maybe I could carry on.
So did you ever run like a proper ultra race, or is it just your thing that you do by yourself?
Oh, yeah. I've done, now I've done 89, so nearly 90 proper ultra events around the world. So yeah, I've done most of the big ones. There's plenty more on my list that I will do eventually, but I'm just in this phase, like I said, of adventure running. And when my circumstances change, when I can't be as free as I am now, or I choose not to be, then I can go back to more kind of having 4 or 5 races in the calendar each year. But that probably won't happen for quite a few years yet.
Yeah. Did you run the UTCT, the one in Cape Town?
I didn't do. No, I didn't do the ultra. I've done a couple of races there.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I didn't do that one. Have you?
I was supposed to do it this November, but well, there's no chance to do it next year.
Yeah, that'll come around.
Yeah. I can't wait. It was supposed to be my first ultra, but I'm waiting and training and
Yeah, you can do. Have you done the distance in training?
No, not yet. I'm a bit I think I need some support and like feel safe and all these things. So that was the reason why I wanted to do the race and not just something like this.
On your own, yeah. No, there's definitely. Yeah, you're right. It's far more difficult when you do it on your own, because you don't have the mental support. You also don't have a kind of emotional backing of all of the people around you that are willing you on. So,
yeah, absolutely. So coming to your marathon world exploring trip. So you said you were away from home for 2 years, is that right?
Yeah.
And you did one marathon in every country, or was there something else? Like, did you do more than one in some countries?
Yeah, so I did one marathon in every country. It was 196 official countries. And then there's a few that were kind of on the cusp that may or may not be countries. And I ended up running 211 marathons, but they were always in places. So, for example, I'd go and I ran in Hong Kong, but because Hong Kong is definitely part of China, but it may not be in the future because of the politics, I thought, well, let's try and future-proof the record and do it properly and do everywhere. So I went and did the Beijing as well. And there was a few other countries like that where I did that weren't official countries, but I also did most of the majors, which was pretty cool during the trip. And I think I ended up doing 5 or 6 in the US, just because I was passing through and I had to wait for planes and all sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Why not just running more marathons?
Yeah, well, why not?
So what did your friends and family say after you said that you will do that?
Yeah, well, most of my friends and family knew that yeah, it wasn't like, oh, by the way, I'm going to do this. Whoa, you're crazy. This like absolutely blown away, because I was already doing things. I already on some mini expeditions. I was already kind of in that mindset. I think what scared them the most is that it was so big, and that when I make my mind up, if I, when I sat my parents down and I said, look, this is what I want to do, they know there's no persuading me otherwise. There's not a chance that I'm going to go, oh, okay, maybe I won't do that. I've done the research, admittedly not much research, but enough to know that it was going to happen. I just didn't know how to make it happen, or all of the problems that came. I had no idea how difficult it was going to be.
Do you have an idea where this mindset comes from?
I think it probably is a combination of, I think, academically I was okay academically, but I'm dyslexic. When I was really young, I couldn't walk properly. There was lots of things about my background that I'm very privileged, and I'm incredibly lucky to have the parents and the family that I do, and I grew up well. But then there's also some, everybody has their little hurdles they have to overcome. And I think, maybe things like my headmaster telling me I'm not a natural runner, maybe that stuck. Highly unlikely that that's the whole story, but there's probably other bits in there that just kind of egged me on. And I think overall I'm probably just very stubborn, and I wanted to try and channel that in a good way. And I used to ski professionally, and skiing was my outlet. Skiing was my competition, and once that ended, I needed to replace it with something. And so I honestly can't really answer that, because I don't know. I have inklings of why, struggled with some things, and so maybe this is my way of kind of winning.
That's so cool. Okay, so I have to ask, who is Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin. So Kevin Webber. I met Kevin when I was running the Marathon des Sables in whatever it was, 2015, I think. A couple of years before I created this whole idea. And like I said, I was already running races, and I went out to the Marathon des Sables, this big 7-day ultra in the desert, and I was in a tent with my coach and 6 other people, so 8 of us in total, and Kevin was one of them. Brilliant tent full of people. And anybody that's done this race, they will know how enriching the experience is, not for the running and not for the physical side, but for the camaraderie of your friendships around you. And you really do bond over that week with the people you have in your tent. And I think I was particularly lucky. We have our WhatsApp group now, which is Tent 105, which was our tent on the road. And Kevin was just one of the other guys, and we had a conversation out in the desert, and he told me that he had terminal prostate cancer, and he said that he had as little as 2 years to live. And it took me back initially, and I think it struck me a little bit more because he was just so happy. He wasn't just this miserable, moping around kind of person. He was just smiling all the time, laughing, happy, and yet he was told he was only going to live for 2 years, and he had children, and he wasn't going to get to see his son's 11th birthday, and it was horrendous when he went into this detail. And I understood then why there was this disconnect between him being happy and ultimately facing death quite soon. It was just that he understood the value and the privilege of life incredibly strongly because of his prognosis. And so I took that and thought about it a bit, and I think it was a real turning point for me that I wanted to go, and I knew I wanted to do something bigger, row oceans, climb mountains, do lots of running all over the place, and that's happening. But he was the one that said, well, why are you waiting for it to happen? And he said, don't wait for a diagnosis. And those words I repeat a lot in any kind of conversation I have, because it's the message that I now live by, which is don't wait for something to happen until it's too late. Don't wait for somebody to knock on your door and say, look, you've only got 2 years to live. Now's the time to start living. Do it now. And so that was that moment. And then after that, went back, had a few more chats with Kev and the rest of the guys, and really got on with everybody. And then I started to do some research into prostate cancer, learned how underfunded it was, decided I wanted to raise a decent amount of money for them, and that I wanted to go and do something in Kev's name. And then my ideas kind of snowballed into, oh, well, we could do a charity run, or maybe I could go and run in every continent, every country in Europe, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, right, well, this is going to be it. And I Googled it, and nobody had done it before, and I was amazed. I now know why it was why nobody had done it. It was very, very difficult. And so 2 years after that, amazingly, Kevin was still alive, and I left on January the 6th, 2018, and went to Canada for country number 1.
Okay, so how did you plan everything? I mean, this is crazy. I mean, 2 years of like having a strict schedule of running a marathon in every country in the world is so incredible. Like, how many
Yeah.
people were involved, and how did you do that?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Initially, the planning, I spent about a year, maybe 9 or 10 months, just on my own planning and kind of chipping away. I had went onto Amazon, bought a huge world map, put it up in my study, and started just post-it noting. In fact, my post-its grew so much that I got rid of the post-its and I used A3 paper, and I just scribbled all of them, and they were all over my walls with different ideas and thoughts of, okay, so we've got safety, we've got visas, we've got transport, we've got the cost, we've got fundraising, sponsors, all of this sort of stuff. And then I eventually, another member of the tent, actually out in the desert, a guy called Jeff, an amazing guy called Jeff, who has a nonprofit called Big Moose. He said to me, look, what you need to do is get some people on your team. You need somebody to help you because you can't do this on your own. I sat around his kitchen table and he said, look, just get an assistant, get somebody that you can find. And I said, well, I don't really want to spend the money on that because we're going to need it for this trip. But he was absolutely right. I needed somebody. And so I hired an assistant to help me plan. And then everything snowballed from there even quicker. Talking it through with somebody else meant I now understood that this was a big, big mission and we needed a lot more money. We needed a lot more people. And then several months later, months and months into the journey, the team grew from, well, me, which was 0, all the way up to 19 people. And we had everything from psychologists, nutritionists, safety advisors, security, visa personnel that sorted all of that out. My parents got involved, very heavily involved. And then budgets started to kind of get really tight again towards the middle of the journey, and we had to cut back, and we got a much smaller team towards the end. And obviously it's a long period of time. For 2 years, people's lives still continue, and yet I was relying on people every day. So we had quite a lot of attrition in the team where people would come and go and replace people. So there was by the end of the trip, there was I would say there was 100 key people that were really fundamental in making the journey happen. And there's also the other side of the coin, like my mentor, Mark Beaumont, who many people will know, very, very well-renowned cyclist, and adventurer even, and presenter, many other things.
Is he the one who cycled around the world? In every country?
Yeah, well, he has the world record for cycling around the world.
Okay.
Very, very speedy. But he, the stuff that he did, which was open me up to getting a publishing deal for my book, which is just coming out soon, and all this sort of stuff. Although it doesn't make the trip happen. He gave me lots of advice and lots of contacts, and said things like, if you're shooting for the documentary, make sure you always film when you least want to film. And it was really good advice. And every time I was either crying or miserable or angry or in a tantrum or stressed, that was the time I had to film in order to capture the right moments. And he was absolutely right. So to answer your question, it was a very big process of working out, even the route, just finding definitely how many countries there were, getting from A to B to C to D to all the way through the countries was very, very difficult. I would challenge anybody to try and organize a flight route. It's going to be impossible now with COVID, but even without COVID, you wouldn't be able to do that without 6 months of effort because it's so big.
So you mentioned Canada. Why did you start there? Was it a place where you wanted to start, or was it just like, okay, it looks good on the map, I just start there?
The latter. Pretty much. It was we tried to understand the room. We tried to be clever by thinking about the weather, thinking about visas, thinking about access to certain countries, and the altitude and all this sort of stuff. Also currencies and politically, am I allowed in one if I've been to another country, all that sort of stuff. And it just worked out that actually I may as well do the world looking at the map left to right. It was as simple as that. Like, just do it as if I'm reading a book, go to the one that's on the top left and just keep going. So we did North America first. And Canada happened to be the at the top there, I suppose. And so we flew to Toronto, and ran in Toronto. Really, really cold conditions. It was minus 25. It was 15 degrees cooler than I was expecting. It caught me by surprise. It was a very cold run. I'm surprised I didn't pull any muscles in that first race, but and then we went down through the Caribbean into South America.
Well, that's a change from Canada. So did you run a race all the time, or was it just like, okay, I just go for a run, don't really plan, I just run wherever I can?
Yeah, early on we realized there was a good chunk of countries that didn't have official races, and so it was a decision of, do we do official races in all the ones that have one and then make our own race in other places? But then I realized that a lot of the places that I was going to be going, I'd already ran official marathons, and I didn't want to just go and do the same one. And then there was a bigger problem that if we were going to do official races in every country, it was going to add another day to our schedule, because you have to get there early, get your bib, all of that sort of stuff. And that, without people on the ground helping me, which was going to be another logistical nightmare, it made sense. Plus, I would rather, like I've just explained, I'd rather just go and run somewhere on my own or with a small bunch of people and discover the places that aren't the mainstream tourist attractions, because that's, as everybody knows, is the best way to travel. So it seemed to work in the best way, and fortunately I was very lucky that I had so many people come out and run with me. So towards the end of the trip, it was like having people that organized the races for us. I had sometimes thousands of people running with me.
Wow.
It wasn't an official race. Yeah.
Was it just over Instagram that you said, okay, tomorrow I will be in this country, join me if you want?
So we had an itinerary on the website, but the website pretty much went out of the window immediately. There was so many changes. We thought that our journey was going to be 220 flights long, so 220 different flights to get to each place, with some connections in there. And then in the end, it took 455 flights. And so that's how much went wrong. And so the itinerary just went completely out of the window. Yeah, exactly. Really, really went wrong. And so before we knew it, like, the website was wrong. And it was, it wasn't just me putting stuff on social. I had, the team back home that were contacting the embassies, contacting running clubs, putting it on Facebook, finding Facebook groups, all sorts of hospitals or schools that I was visiting. There was so many people that were kind of coming out of the woodwork to help, and the British Embassy did a good job at linking me up with some key people.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you write a diary or something every day?
Yeah. So I always write a diary. Some days the diary entry will just be like rubbish day, and that's it, and I won't write anything else. But most of the time I try and just write some basic stuff down. It's not a Dear Diary kind of situation. It's more of a, this is what we did, this is who I met, these are the phone numbers and the names of the people I was with. And along with my diary, I was obviously recording a lot. So my video diary plus my handwritten diary plus the photos of the run, it became a really good log in order to put the documentary and the book together, because there was an awful lot of people there. And I mean, I apologize to everybody I've missed from the book, because I've tried to include what we've done with the book, actually, that I insisted with the publishers that everybody that donated or had anything to do with the journey, if I met them, if they donated, if they were part of the team, if they sent me a lovely message, everybody that did that would have their name in the back of the book. So it took a long time to get all of those names together.
How big is the book?
The book is far too big, even without those names. No, I was held off for too many names and words. But it was. There was a huge amount to do.
Crazy. That's so cool. Yeah, I heard that you had like 2000 new contacts in your phone afterwards.
Yeah, that was special. These are the kind of people that you meet and you think, oh yeah, I'll maybe stay in touch with them. But I was amazed that when I got back for that first Christmas, I ended the journey with literally 2,000 new friends in my phone that were WhatsApp friends or normal text friends, and everything from security people in airports to taxi drivers to air hosts to everybody. My first Christmas, I was back in the UK waiting for some passports and some visas. And I had messages from 60 different people in 60 different countries message me on that first Christmas. It was just the most amazing feeling to know that I have this kind of brilliant friendship group all over the world. So yeah, I was
So,
very lucky.
how long did it take to respond?
Yeah, I think it took me about until February probably. Obviously, I was quite busy over that Christmas. So no, I did manage to respond to everybody, I believe, but it took a while.
Okay, so coming back to your running trip,
Mm.
what, if you're honest, was it legal what you did in every country?
It was. At times, there were situations where we were having to put like Plan B or Plan C in place. And had we got to Plan C or Plan D, then that's when it goes over the line into right. Well, if I'm refused access, we just need to get in the country somehow. But many of the places that would refuse me access, I mean, I've not got any criminal record. I'm from Britain. Many places will let me in, but there's a few places that did refuse us entry, at least a dozen, 8 or 9 that were really difficult, maybe. And those places were like Iran or Libya or Syria or Yemen, and you don't want to be hopping over the border, not because you don't want to commit a crime, it's because you know that crime is going to lead you into somewhere you don't want to be. So we ended up doing everything legally, which I think when I started planning, I assumed that obviously we'd do everything illegally. But as the trip went on, it was like, well, okay, we're going to have to do whatever we can now. But fortunately, it did work out.
Yeah, that's the reason why I had to ask, because I wasn't sure, because I had the same thing. Like, if they say it's not okay, I just keep running because I wanna finish it. But
Yeah, the closest I came, I suppose, was in the Vatican City, actually not far from where we are, in relative terms. I was running around Vatican City. I did 82 laps, and I was something like 20 laps into running around this, obviously it's the smallest country in the world. And the police there told me I had to stop running. And I stopped with them for a good 5 or 10 minutes, persuading them to let me carry on running. So obviously if they said no, there's nowhere else in the country to run. That was, Vatican City is so small. And so that was probably the closest we came to being in a country and then being refused to run. But fortunately we sorted that out.
okay, so how did you deal with any interruption, like your your flight got canceled or all these things?
Mm.
What did you do? I mean, mentally, it's quite hard when you know you have your plan and then you're just like, okay, so this plan doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that was very difficult. I was absolutely exhausted by. I mean, the running side of things was relatively easy in relative terms. It was in the hot and the very cold places, the hilly places, it got harder. But the hardest thing was the emotional burden of, okay, I am responsible for me, and there's a lot of people that are working together for me to finish this trip, and I can't miss a flight. I can't forget what day it is. I can't go and sprain my ankle by running somewhere silly. I can't get myself too tired or can't get myself too ill. I had to be really, really sensible and conscientious of every decision. And so when things move like flights, I'd get the phone call in the morning from my dad, who was booking all my flights for me, and said, like 2 o'clock in the morning, you've got to get to the airport now because your plane's cancelled tomorrow, and if you don't go now, then you won't be able to get to the next place. And I'd say there was, 10 times in the trip where we had to have a good phone call and replan where flights were cancelled. And we had, I think it was, I can't remember the number now, but around 80 flights that were cancelled during the trip, and
Oh my God,
that causes problems.
that's
Yeah,
so much.
yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Airlines are a nightmare on the journey, but we got it done.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so I also heard that you did all the dangerous countries in the end. Why that?
Yeah. I suppose there's a few things. So if we did if we did some of the dangerous countries in the middle, then the very obvious one is that the plan is most likely to go wrong, because we'll put them in the middle and then all the other ones will have to move back because of the problem. So it made sense to put them at the end. However, my reason for putting them all at the end was I'd rather see a lot of the countries that I want to see. I'd rather see most of the world before I have a chance of getting shot or getting injured or ending up in prison or deported or something. So it was let's just put them at the end. But at the beginning, I thought we would be doing them kind of scattered amongst the trip. But I'm very glad, really, that we left them to the end, because they were very, very difficult. And if we'd not done them that way, then I don't know if we'd finish. So yeah, kind of good, kind of bad.
So talking about dangerous things, why are dogs so dangerous when you run?
yeah, you've definitely been reading up about all of my problems. Gosh, so I love dogs. Obviously, I've got a puppy. Always loved dogs, but a lot of the world, especially developing countries, their dogs are just on the street, and it's not an exaggeration to say that hundreds, thousands of dogs are just strays on the street, reproducing and just getting more and more dogs. And I was attacked and bitten and chased by many, many, many dogs, to the point that I was scared for my legs, but also scared genuinely for my life, because these dogs were big, aggressive, hungry. And I was in places where I couldn't just shout for help. I was just running through the mountains or something in Mongolia or Bolivia or something. But no, in the bad place was in the Pacific Islands, in a country called the Marshall Islands. And they have a situation there where the dogs are so bad on the island that when I turned up to my hotel, of which there were very few hotels on the island, they gave me my room key, and they also gave me a stick. And that stick was to defend the dogs. And I looked at them and I thought they were joking. And every guest gets a stick. And I later found out that the island has a diabetes crisis, because everybody on the island doesn't do exercise because you can't, because you will get attacked by dogs. I know. And so running a marathon, let alone like walking down the street to the shop, was a challenge. And I took my stick out for the run. And in I think it was about 1.5 miles, 2 miles down the road, I was more or less surrounded by between 20 and 40 dogs. Lots of big aggressive dogs, and I was swinging my stick trying to get them away. And I ended up having to walk slowly back towards the hotel. And I ran, I think it was 335 laps of the car park just to get the run done. And that wasn't in that wasn't in a cordoned off area. That was just in a place where there were less dogs. So but it was scary. Every time I hear a dog bark now, it reminds me of many occasions on the trip.
Oh God!
Yeah.
So treadmill was never an option for you?
Say again?
Treadmill was never an option for you?
No, I could never. That was not in the rules. I could never treadmill.
Oh right, okay.
Even if I don't think it was in the official rules. It was just kind of one of my own rules that running a marathon, you've got to do it in the country, not on a treadmill. So no, I would never have done that.
Well, I think after the crisis now, you would know that you can actually run a marathon on a balcony and all these things.
Yeah, I've done a few things like that now, like tiny runs. Like I did one around the van. I did 2,500 laps of the van in early lockdown, just because I could.
Oh Jesus! So how did you get in countries without the visa? I heard that you had some issues with Syria and Iran, and there was another one, right?
Yeah, there was a few.
Okay.
Yes, Iran was the most difficult, where they refuse visas. Many countries have areas. Well, I say many. Some countries have areas of their land, their country, that you can go to without a visa. But it's not always easy to get there with flights and travel. So, and there's also some reasons some places you have to be invited by the king or the queen or the palace of the country. Sometimes you have to have special invitations by the government. And so we had to make sure that will happen. But it wasn't anywhere I went that we didn't get the visa. It's just you have to try many, many times. Actually, that's not true. Iran. When I went to Iran, the only place in Iran that didn't require a visa was a small place called Kish Island, which is part of Iran, but not on the mainland. And so I went there and was allowed to stay for 12 hours. And so, yeah, we got the run done and got out quite quickly.
Oh, Jesus, oh God. Okay. I also heard that you are running on a landing strip.
Yeah. So this is. I think I don't know why it's not more famous, to be honest. Well, I guess because it's so far away and tiny. But in a country called
It was Tuvalu, or?
Tuvalu. That's it. Yes. Yeah. Tuvalu.
I had it actually in my geography class when I was younger, when I was back in school. So I actually knew that this place exists, and then I heard about it. And I was like, "Well, this is funny that he was running his marathon there."
Yeah, I definitely didn't. I've never heard of Tuvalu, and so when I got there and saw the runway, I also didn't know that was a thing in Tuvalu, that people use the runway as their only space on the island. And because there was only a few flights in and out, then I had to run. And how many laps it was? I think it was about a mile up and a mile back. So 13 laps of the runway and got it done. But there was planes coming in, and it was absolutely surreal. That was a very special day.
I can absolutely understand that. But I was talking to some friends, and everyone asked me, how did he run in North Korea?
Yeah, North Korea is not that difficult. North Korea has an official marathon.
Wow.
I would say there's about 20 countries more difficult than North Korea to get access and run a marathon. Yeah. So North Korea, they have an official marathon in April in Pyongyang. And you can go, there's about 1,000 people that take part. Of that 1,000, there's about 300 foreigners. And yeah, so there's a company called Koryo Tours that do the race and do the tour to the country.
Is it the propaganda tour?
It's you can't go on. You can't just wander around the streets. You have to go. You have to go and see the normal North Korea through the eyes of what you're allowed to see. But it certainly didn't feel fake. It just felt very weird. I didn't feel unsafe at all. It just felt. It was very cold actually. It actually snowed towards the end of the marathon. So it was a bit. It was crazy to be in North Korea, like realizing that I was standing in North Korea and running a marathon in North Korea. So it was surreal, but not difficult to get access. It was just a bit of a logistical nightmare. I was in South America and had to travel like crazy distance to get to Beijing to then fly into North Korea and then back out and then back to South America again. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how was it in general? I mean, you're from the UK, so I think it's quite easy for you to travel. What do you think if you would have been like an American citizen?
Well, there's many people. I mean, Dean Karnazes is one of the best ultra runners in the world. He, I sat down with him in January and spoke about this in the US, and he wants to do something similar and has been threatening to do this kind of trip for a decade, really. And the reason that he hasn't been able to is because of the government not allowing him, because he's from the US, and I think very lucky to be not just British, but kind of central neutral European, I suppose. There's plenty of other countries out there that you can easily access everywhere. It's just maybe you don't have the money, or maybe the government will just kind of tie your hands a little bit. But I'm very lucky to be born where I am in order to do this. Otherwise, I wouldn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I think I never really thought about it, but then I was actually I think I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and I heard about it and I was like, this is really interesting because you never really think about it. I mean, I'm from Germany. I never had problems to go anywhere. I was already in Israel, Australia, and all these countries, and I never thought about like having troubles to get somewhere.
But there's I would say, I mean, this is a complete random guess off the top of my head, but I would say there's at least 85, 90 countries in the world, that maybe more, that you can't easily access everywhere. And I would say there's probably a good proportion of those that even struggle going to a neighboring country. I mean, forgetting about Israel or Palestine or anywhere like that, forgetting about that, just thinking about in Africa. You know, there's some African countries that don't even fly to the neighboring countries because of the politics. So
That's so crazy.
no, there's substantial problems. So you're absolutely right. We're very lucky.
Okay, so I'm actually curious about your recovery. How did you recover when you run so many marathons?
Yeah, it's a weird one because I've done lots of like I'm doing now, you know, marathons every day or bigger distances over a short period of time. Recovery is one that I'm always learning about, and I think I'm very fortunate not to have had many injuries. But I didn't do anything. Like my recovery routine for the running the world trip was occasionally if I feel a bit sore or if I feel like my tendons are, you know, going, or I would ice them, I'd elevate them for the evening and then get up and go to the plane and do another one. You know, I didn't really do that much. I tried to run at a pace where I wasn't feeling any struggle whatsoever. And therefore, if I wasn't feeling a struggle, there was no struggle going through my legs or little struggle going through my legs. And so I always try, if I was always, you know, picking up the pace by accident, then I'd run slower. And as I got towards the middle of the trip, I just got completely used to it, and there was no pain whatsoever, and I just got on with it. So I'm not very good at answering that one because I ate whatever I wanted to eat, and I just did virtually nothing afterwards in order to rest my legs for a bit, and occasional cold showers, that kind of stuff, but nothing significant.
Yeah, you mentioned your diet. I wanted to dive in there because I'm actually a nutritionist, or soon I will be one.
Yeah.
So how did your diet look like? What did you eat before, during, and after the marathons?
So, well, there were many days where I didn't eat anything before, during, or afterwards, believe it or not. I think it was something like, I can't remember the number, but something like 50 marathons where I didn't eat anything before, during, or afterwards on that day, because of the logistics of what I was doing and where I was flying into and stuff. I think a good piece of advice that I always give kind of friends or something that come to me for nutrition advice, and I know nothing really about nutrition, is water. Like if you don't, you know, if you can't get by a marathon without having proper fluids in you, and you can't just have too much water, then you flush all of your good nutrients out either. You've got to be pretty sensible with your salt and your electrolytes, and if you've got that, then you're okay. So I was always putting salt and pepper and like just seasoning everything, lots of salt on my food, whenever I had anything on a plane or something. But my nutrition was, in the mornings, if I was up, so I was usually running early to beat the heat because it was most countries were really hot. So I was always getting out before breakfast opened if I was staying in a hotel, and therefore couldn't have any breakfast. On the run, I relied quite heavily on, just because there's so many places, especially in Africa and Asia, where you can't get I couldn't find any easily nutritious meals that were on the street whilst I was running past them, that I could eat while running. You know, there's lots of meals out there, but not that I needed. And so I would get like a can of Fanta or something, some sugar if I needed it towards the end of the run, but generally try and just keep away from worrying about it. I actively said, look, just if you go past a shop and you're thirsty, get a drink. If you go past a shop and you're hungry, eat some food. But I knew enough that I just needed to eat and eat and eat. And I lost that first 12, I can't remember what week it was, but the first week in Africa, the first 2 weeks in Africa, I lost I think it was 11 kilos.
Oh wow!
Body weight. I lost loads of weight, because I just wasn't in a habit of eating the right stuff. So, but this trip actually, I've learned, on day, what am I now? Day 40. But I was 9% body fat when I started, and I'm now under 4% body fat, which is like too little, really, because I'm doing one every day, and I'm also probably a little bit blasé with what I'm eating. You know, I'm actually gained more muscle, but that's absolutely dropped down. So, and there was the other side of the coin where I was invited to lots of people's homes or parties or embassy staff like gatherings or something, and I'd always be treated to really good food, and that's when I would kind of eat as much as I possibly could, because it got expensive if you were eating in other places. So yeah, my nutrition was completely rubbish when I was away, but I just got through day to day.
Yeah, I just remembered, I think it was in Rich Roll's podcast when you said there was this, I think a woman in Africa and she was giving you water and she said
Yeah.
something like water is life or something like this.
She said water is like, I had that a few times. I think that was in the Caribbean, somewhere in Africa as well. And yeah, people were giving me water that couldn't afford to give me water and didn't have enough water themselves, but they could see that I needed it, and they were just so overwhelmingly giving. It was very, very special to witness firsthand on many occasions how wonderful human beings can be when they're faced with somebody that needs help. And it wasn't like I was crawling over their door dying. I was just running past, and they were like, "Yeah." I said, "Can I have some water? I need water. I haven't got any money." And they said, "Yeah, here's water. Water is life." And really, really profound.
Oh, that's so touching. I mean, you see the people there and you know where you come from and how life
Yeah.
can be. And I think it's a crazy experience to see that.
It's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
It's just really. I often felt like I almost wasn't worthy of their kindness, because I was, like you say, I knew where I'm coming from and I knew where they're coming from, and they're selling water from a little shed hut, sometimes not even a hut, just on the street, just standing on a box, or wheeling a thing of water around. And they'll never leave their own country. They'll never see the rest of the world. They'll never have an education that I've had. They'll never understand the freedom and opportunities that I have. And yet they're smiling at me, offering what they can't afford to give. So it was very humbling.
You mentioned a couple of countries on your website, your top 10 countries. And I was actually wondering why you mentioned Indonesia, Sierra Leone, and Kiribati.
Okay, so what was the first one? Indonesia.
Yeah.
Uh,
First of all, they have the best food. Have you tried the gado-gado there?
I don't remember if I tried that. What kind
Oh,
of dish?
it's the peanut sauce, veggie
Oh
stuff.
yeah. That's the
Oh
really
my
common
God,
one, isn't it?
so good.
Yeah, I didn't know it was called that. I loved Indonesia. So I ran in Bali. I ran barefoot along the beach in Bali, um,
Wow.
and my feet were a bit ruined afterwards. But Bali is definitely somewhere close to my heart. The people are incredibly lovely, similar to Sierra Leone. You know, I had a very moving experience when I went to visit a hospital in Sierra Leone, and again, Sierra Leone was once one of the poorest, or the poorest country in the world at that time, and I was met with the most friendly, giving people. So yeah, all of my favourites are generally to do with people.
Oh, that's so nice. I mean, people can make everything so special. I mean, you never really know who will be there and how the culture is, and you get to know the country much better when you get to know the people.
Yeah, yes, it's. I wish I had more time in certain places, because there's. I mean, I'm going to go back, and like I'm doing now, running north to south and around countries is going to be what I do for many years. So I'll be able to see lots more of the people in the countries that I love.
Okay, so I mean, your mission was to run a marathon in every country, but did you have time to actually see places or see specific things in the country there?
Yeah, I mean, I did 2.5 to 3 countries a week. That was what it worked out at. And many people say, well, you definitely can't see anything in that time. But I'd say, if you go on holiday for a week to a city that you've never been to before, the chances of you actually walking or running 26 miles around that city is highly unlikely in that week, because you'll get a taxi, or you'll get the bus, or you'll get a ferry or something, and you won't really be seeing it at a running pace, and you certainly won't have the opportunity to witness the kindness that I had, because you're looking at it from a tourist perspective, as opposed to many of the places that I was going to, which weren't the tourist hotspot. And I didn't really feel like a tourist. I felt like a stranger. And then I run around the country or a city, and I then know exactly what the vibe of that city is like. I understood the friendliness, I understood how cars drive, I understood how the culture of food on the streets works. Little things like the traffic light systems, the way in which people give way, all that sort of stuff. You gauge a place by running around it. So I felt like, I mean, you run in a place like China, and okay, I did Hong Kong and Beijing, but there's hundreds of cities, if not thousands of cities in China that are bigger than like the population of the UK. You know, there's literally hundreds, and so there's many places that I'm still to go and experience properly.
I'm also curious. I mean, you already mentioned Dean earlier. How did he call, or did you call him afterwards? Hey, I finished it, or how was this? I mean, we all know that he was. I mean, I wouldn't say supposed to do it, but I mean, I think we all had it in mind.
Yeah, no, I think everybody knows that. I hope Dean does it one day, and I hope that I get to be a part. Something in my throat. Excuse me. Yeah, I hope that I get to be a part of his team.
Oh,
that
nice.
I really would love to be not a big part, but just somebody that would help him get to there, because I know he'll do it, and I hope that he does it in a way that will just smash it and make it look brilliant. So yeah, no, we had a few messages back. Excuse me, sorry. Something in my throat. Yeah, we had a few messages backwards and forwards, and then when I finished, we had I think it was the beginning of January. We had a dinner in London, an event at the running show, and then I went out a few weeks later to see him at his home in San Francisco. So we had a little bit of a run and a chat. And yeah, when I go back out to the States, when I'm allowed to go back to the States because of COVID, then I'll go and see him again and see where his plans are at.
Yeah, I'm super curious what he will do with his life.
Oh, he's an amazing guy, isn't he? He's going to carry on running forever.
Yeah. I read his book just a couple of months ago, and I was impressed. I mean, even the way how he writes the book is just like, oh my God, this is so touching. Don't stop running. Keep going.
Yeah.
So
no, he's an amazing guy. He's got great motivation. He's similar to Rich Roll, isn't it? It's brilliant motivation, and he's doing wonders for the sport.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of like amazing athletes out there. I had Lucy Bartholomew on the show last week. She's amazing. Same with Scott Jurek and all the amazing, crazy athletes out there. So I'm super excited what will happen in the next couple of years. And I mean, you see people now, they use this time to do amazing things. I mean,
we're very lucky. Yeah, we're very, very lucky to be born in the time that we're in, because I mean, or even for me, had I done this trip a few months later, then COVID would have hit and I wouldn't have been able to do it. I was literally finishing when everything was starting off. So similarly, the freedom that we have, forgetting about COVID, when things get back to normal, we are so many people are doing fun things. Excuse me. Sorry. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna get a drink. Give me 1 minute. Hello, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, good. No worries. You're just human.
Yeah, there we go. Too much talking.
Not so good.
Yeah, what I was saying is, we're obviously very lucky. There's the David Attenborough documentary that's out on Netflix, and the book that he's got out. I've just finished listening to that. I mean, in his lifetime, the amount of freedom that we've now learned to have, and yet still so many people in the world don't have. So goodness knows what it's going to be like when we get to peak human and we have 12 billion people on the planet. It's going to be special.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So how did your life change after this whole trip? I mean, I mean, you had your van afterwards, so you're not living in your apartment anymore. And I think like media got your attention, and I mean, you got a proper world record, or?
Yeah, we've got 4. We're waiting on another 4. So yeah, a couple of world firsts. So it's lovely to have those, but I mean, it's nice to raise the money. And to answer your question, I think my life has changed so much for the better. But living in a van and traveling and being able to make running everything that I want it to be. But I'm just very, very grateful, and from meeting Kevin, really. It's not really from the trip, it's probably from meeting Kevin and having that moment of, I actually understand now that I don't want to waste a day. When you just I urge everybody to try and live like, it's foolish to live like today is your last day, because then you spend all your money and you're reckless and you don't do things sensibly. But also don't live as if you're going to do all of your hopes and dreams when you retire, because it might not happen. And so I'm just trying to cram as much as I can in while I'm alive and kicking. And so I'm very grateful, and I feel like I'm in a good space with it. So yeah, very lucky.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that you do all the speaking events, and I saw that you do them at schools as well. And I'm actually wondering, what is like one of the most important things that you want to tell children or the students?
Yeah, absolutely. There's loads of schools, and I was supposed to be touring now, but I'm in Italy doing this because of COVID. But next year, as soon as I think January the 27th is my first speaking gig back, and then we'll be doing schools, theatres, and businesses all over the UK and Europe, and some over in the US if we're allowed to be there. And so my general messages are all sorts of failure, of courage, like learning from failure. Like, there's so many kids, especially in privileged schools, that don't understand that failure is a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
fail at stuff and learn from it. And I think there's a lot of what comes with a privilege of a great education is also the expectation of doing well and never having an opportunity to sit back and reflect and maybe choose a different path if you want to. So there's all sorts of stuff I talk about with that, but I generally urge kids more than anything to be grateful for today and understand how very, very lucky we are, like unfathomably privileged to be able to have the opportunities that we do. Just to be able to turn on the tap and be water. Millions, 3-4 billion people in the world do not have that. There's 2 million kids under 5 years old that die from starvation every year. That's horrendous, and yet we just take everything for granted. So I'm not against people playing on PlayStations and that sort of stuff, but I'm against them doing it without the intent. I don't want them just to fritter away a year and then another year and then another year and then another year, and before you know it, you're 40 years old and you're still playing PlayStation games. Like, yeah, and that happens. Life is too short and too precious for us to be doing that, and we have a responsibility to everybody that doesn't have that privilege to do something better with our time. So I hope they will take some of the messages away, and I've had some lovely messages from parents and kids that I've spoken with. So hopefully I'll keep doing that. That's definitely going to be a backbone of my career in the future.
Yeah, I also heard that there's this 196 or 196 foundation. Is that your foundation, or what is that all about?
Yeah, so I created the 196 Foundation during the trip, actually, because I saw so much poverty and I wanted to do some good with it. But the idea of the foundation, which I've not properly launched yet, because it's been a bit of a whirlwind since I finished, the world's changed somewhat. But once it's launched, it's there ready, but I just need to start publicizing it a little bit better and getting some funding in. But the idea is that we ask for donations of €1 or $1 or £1.96 per month, 196 per month from individuals all over the world, and we put that into a pot. And every year we then deliver a project for a 30-day period, delivering. So it could be something as simple as giving that money to a family that needs it, or we could do something much bigger, like building a disabled learning centre in Sierra Leone, which is something that I'm going to be doing for our first project. And the beauty of the fundraising is that every year the donors get to vote on where the money goes, and so the winner of that vote will then receive that funding, and all of the money will be eco-friendly, so we're going to spend money in a wise way, and it won't be wasted. All of the pennies and the pounds will be stretched as much as possible, and nobody will be paid for their time. So I won't be paid, and nobody within the foundation will be paid. It will all be voluntary. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a slow start. All of these kind of foundations are a slow start, and I don't imagine that we're going to be breaking any records or winning any awards for a good 5 or 10 years. But when we get into that realm of having done it for many years, we'll have a really great base. We'll have a really great foundation of of great people volunteering their support, and I just need to kick it off in a bigger way now.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm really excited how this will turn out in the end. Okay, so talking about like now, how do you feel right now? I mean, you're in Italy. You have the privilege to be there right now. I mean, we're kind of stuck in the places where we are right
Yeah.
now because it's getting hard again. So how do you
Yeah.
deal with this at the moment?
Yeah, it is difficult. I mean, looking looking ahead, that's something that, you know, I've got plans next year. The tour, we've got 3 different mini expeditions that we're doing. We're then planning for future years after that, and we don't know what COVID's going to bring. So, but the way I look at it is, as long as I am obeying the rules and we're wearing our mask when we're out in public and when we're walking around in shops or in the hotel, or we go into a petrol station or whatever, we have to obey the rules, hand sanitize, etc., keep our distance. Obviously, we're not gathering any groups because we don't know anybody, so it's just us. And running through the country is quite fine, but you never know; it could be locked down. You know, by the end of the year, it might be locked down, and then we'd have to put a lid on it and stop. But I'm not going to wait around for that as a maybe to happen. So we're going to press on as much as we can. But, you know, lots of my family or people all over the UK and the rest of Europe are obviously stuck where they are. I'm very glad that we managed to start this journey, even if because of COVID we're not going to be able to finish it. But fingers crossed. You know, it's 60 days time and we should get to Sicily. But no, I'm very lucky. It was weird during lockdown in the UK because we were in the van and it didn't really hit us because we were living in a van next to the beach. You know, we were locked down in the best possible place. So I've been very lucky to avoid any big impact. You know, my parents, bless them, they had to lock themselves away for a few months, and they were fine, unfortunately. So it's a weird old time, and I don't see it getting any better, at least in the next couple of years. I think COVID is around to stay. I just hope it becomes something that we all live with and aren't fearful of.
Yeah, that's a good thing to be a runner. I mean, we don't need like so much stuff. We just go
No,
out there. If we're allowed to go out there, that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even in the lockdown in the UK, we were still allowed to, and I don't know if you were, but still allowed to go out on the streets. Yeah. So, you know, it's not like we literally don't even need trainers if we don't have to. You know, we can run barefoot if we want to. So, no, yeah, that is another beauty of running.
I was wondering, I mean, you traveled so much in your trip. How do you feel now when you know that we're actually not really allowed to travel? I mean, do you feel privileged that you had the honor to travel to be in every country?
Yeah, I don't think literally anybody in the world imagined that that this would be the situation. And when I started, never went through my mind that by the time I finished, most of the planes wouldn't be flying. You know, 737s would be taken out of the air because we can't afford them anymore. People aren't flying because it was unsafe to go to other countries. I just never imagined it. So it's just a whole different world. You know, it hit very close to when I finished the trip, almost to the day, really. And so, yes, it took a few months to get to us. I'm absolutely privileged and very, very honoured and lucky and fortunate to be able to have done it. But I've also seen the other side of the coin where, you know, I've been in countries with things like SARS and Ebola and the Zika virus and all this sort of stuff, especially Ebola in the Congo countries and surrounding. There's so many people that are dying from that, and yet because it's not affecting us, we haven't noticed. You know, many people will go, oh, Ebola, yeah, that happened a while ago. No, it's happening now and it's killing people, and we are not doing enough about it. The same exactly as I said before, it's the same for starvation. You know, we're talking about, what is it now, over 1 million people that have died from COVID, and yet 2 million under 5-year-olds die every year because they haven't got enough food, and we definitely have enough food. So do something about it, and because it doesn't affect the people that hold the power and the money, then we don't do things. So I hope that's something that my foundation can sort out in the longer term, or at least kind of make a dent. But no, we are lucky, and I think we need to remember that we are very lucky, even if we can't travel. You know, even if we're locked in our room.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I have one more question before I will come to my end of the podcast questions. You mentioned your future projects. Is there something you're allowed to talk about?
I'm not allowed to talk too much about the big one, which is happening in 22 and 23. That's going to be a big trip, which potentially may dwarf what I've already done. So we'll see. I'm pretty scared of that one. That's going to be big, but I'm announcing that not in the not too distant future. But yeah, so next year I've got a few challenges, a few records to try. Going to go and run north to south of Malawi.
That's
Going to
interesting.
run. That's going to be cool. Going to run circumnavigate Iceland, so run around Iceland. Also going to run around Bali, go back to Bali as I love Bali.
Yay!
Exactly. See some good sights in Bali again. So what would we say? Iceland, Bali, Malawi. Oh, and we're running north to south of New Zealand too. So
New Zealand is lovely. Oh my
yeah, so
God, I
there
miss
are a
it.
few things that we're doing next year. I mean, there might be a few other mini ones in there, but those ones are going to be good fun, north to south, kind of big mileage every day. Hopefully, get some good people out running, and the immediate future is getting ready for the tour, which will happen next year. Start speaking again. Hopefully, get lots of people that will come and listen to my stories. And the book. The book is. I mean, what are we now? The book is coming out in like 3 weeks, less than that, 2.5 weeks.
Ooh,
So,
nice.
yeah, it's on Amazon now, but it'll be out on the shelves on the 11th of November. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's the birthday of my mom.
Yeah, thank you. That's very kind. No, I'm really excited to see it because I've not got the physical book yet. So I think some people will receive the book before I will because I'm not home. I know. So yeah, that's going to be a bit interesting.
Oh, poor you. But I'm sure that it will be great.
Yeah, I enjoyed writing it. So yeah, first of many, I hope.
Oh, so cool. Okay, so where can people find you? I mean, you already mentioned your book, but do you have Instagram, website? I mean, I know that you have, but the people out there
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. So the Instagram is Nick Butter Run. Nick Butter Run. Very simple. My name and then run. And my website is just my name, nickbutter.com. All of the information is on there. And if you want to get in touch with me, if you want to say hello, if you want to tell me your stories, or if you want to come and run with me in the future, then just email me. And I don't mind giving my email address out because it's everywhere. It's nick@nickbutter.co.uk, nick@nickbutter.co.uk. And yeah, I think other than that, Strava. People have Strava. People like to follow me on Strava sometimes. Yeah, I like Strava. I've been pretty rubbish with updating it when I'm not on a trip, but when I'm on a challenge, then I always update it. So yeah, my Strava name is Nick Butter Running the World. Simple as that.
Oh, epic. Okay, so a book that inspired you. That's actually a question that I always ask, but I saw that there's Jupiter Travels on your
Oh
website.
yeah,
So I haven't heard about this book. What's that
yeah.
about?
There's many books that I would put on that list, but I chose one that maybe people wouldn't have heard of. It's a book that my publisher actually, an editor, recommended to me. A guy who travelled on a motorbike for a number of years around the world in I believe it's the early 60s. And he wrote for the Times at the time, and he wrote everything by hand and kept all of his notes on the back of his motorbike, and then wrote a book about his trip. And what's so brilliant about his book is that he's brutally honest with everything he feels during the trip. All sorts of encounters, and he really experiences the world as if pure adventure. It was the age just before the age of accessible adventure to the mainstream, to the masses, and he did a really great job at writing it up. Writing it then and then writing it as a book and publishing it much later, like 30 years after the fact, was quite clever. There's many books that I love and constantly read. I say reread. I don't really read books. I more listen to them as I'm too busy running. But yeah, Mark Beaumont's Around the World in 80 Days, his first attempt, his second book as well. He's just releasing another book called Endurance. There's some really good books out there.
Oh, cool. I'm currently reading Endure. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. What does that cover look like? I can't remember.
It's the white one with the red circle. There's circles in it.
Oh, maybe not. No, that's
I
wasn't what I
can
was.
show you.
Yeah, show me.
That's it.
Oh yes, I've got that one. Yes, yeah. Really good.
Yeah, I really like it. I mean, I just started, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I had that one. I got that for Christmas a few years ago. There's a good. I mean, there's so many running books. I mean, there's running books, there's travel books. I quite like the adventure books. There's. I also recommend everybody to write their own. You don't have to think about publishing or being a good writer. Just write down your story,
Yeah.
because it's quite enriching to do that. Actually, it's kind of like another level of therapy to write down stuff. And you write it down, you're like, oh yeah, I did that, or oh, okay, I didn't realize that about myself. So yeah, it's actually really nice to write.
Yeah, I think the best way to reflect on life.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Okay, so what excites you after waking up? I mean, at the moment it might be running, but in
I'm
general?
definitely run at the moment. Yeah. What excites me after waking up? Getting outside actually is always the first thing to go to the window and have a look. Obviously, in the van we have these little blinds at the back of the van, so I just kind of peel down and have a look to see how light it is. Most of the time it's dark when I wake up, so kind of I love that, and I think a lot of runners and cyclists do, being out early morning, and kind of being up before the sun is up, and just experiencing places. So I love getting outside, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, last question. One thing that everyone should know.
One thing that everybody should know. Um, I think it's going to have to be the message of your time is precious. The number, and that's a good number actually. The number is 29,747. 29,747 is the amount of days the average person lives for. And so if you think about how many days you've used, how many you've got left on average, considering we don't always make it to the average and sometimes we get over the average, I think time is something that we take for granted. So maybe that number.
That's so interesting. I'm gonna write that in my gratitude journal tomorrow. I always write down what I've learned. So this is something I learned today. Nice. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
All right. So thank you very much for your time. If you're ever in Berlin, let me know. I will go on a run with you. And I wish you all the best. And I hope that you can finish your 100 days in Italy.
Yeah, we'll get it done. We'll get it done, even if it takes a little while because of my foot. But yeah, and COVID doesn't stop us, I hope. But yeah, no, definitely. I'll come to Germany at some point from Berlin. Maybe I'll do a north to south of Germany.
Yeah, that's cool.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in with me today. Make sure to let me know how this episode resonated with you by tagging me under @ElisaLicious over on Instagram. That's where you can also send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. If you want to know more, make sure to head over to elisalicious.de where you can find the show notes for each episode. And please make sure to pop over to iTunes and leave me a rating and review. And hey, if you like what you hear, check out my Patreon page where you can support my work. I appreciate that so much. Big thank you to Tanja and Notschaele for graphics and music by Temple Hayes. Have a wonderful rest of the day and I'll see you next week.